So today we're joined by Cowboy Kenny Bartram, and he's got so many accolades, and he will not tell you those things, but we'll talk more about it in a minute. But first of all, just want to say hi. How's it going? And what's going on with life, buddy?
That's going great, man. Just chilling at another show this weekend. I'm actually in Pikeville, Kentucky at a No Limits Monster Truck Show.
Okay.
I got a little break from did some morning media stuff this morning, kind of trying to promote the show and unloaded my ramps. And that the floor is not done yet, so I couldn't roll into the arena, but got the afternoon off, so I figured I'd jump on here with you.
We actually talked about this off the air. You're doing some monster jam stuff right now, and monster trucks in general. How do you like that? Like, do you feel like it's a good breakup? I know, like you've done. So for those that don't know, Kenny Bartram is a freestyle motocross rider. He's a movie guy, he's a film guy, he's a stuntman, and we will really get into all that. But just for the people, just to catch things up, as a motocross guy and doing the freestyle, you're doing a lot of the monster truck stuff. Well, I wondered, like with arena cross, or if you do something that's dirt bike related, is the audience and or their reception different when it comes to being in the arena with the monster truck guys?
It is. It's every sport or every genre of event kind of has its own little demographic of people. Um, the monster trucks, they're motorheads. It doesn't seem to matter. They want to hear a loud bike and see something in the air and I'm going to tear some stuff up.
Yeah.
Where your arena cross crowds, they are more, they're racers and they know a lot more about freestyle, and so it's actually harder to impress them usually. They've seen it more often, and they're really in the know. They're the ones that watch the YouTube videos and really know like what's the newest, latest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where the monster truck fan or rodeo fans and stuff like that, they're just kind of everyday people that don't really see freestyle. And unfortunately, I'm 45 years old. I'm not riding at the top of the level anymore or top of the game anymore. So it's nice to be able to impress people that don't know what the cool stuff really is.
Yeah. One of the things I definitely want to talk about today is like the history of your of the sport, really, of freestyle motocross. I'm a huge freestyle fan. I'm a as big or bigger motocross fan in general. Uh, but there's been a lot of years in the freestyle world, and it's really ironic actually, because just a couple days ago I saw this video on, I believe, Instagram, and it was Mike Metzger doing, he was riding with these like bright yellow tires, and it was, I don't remember what, if it was X Games gravity, I don't know, but it was, must have been like 99 or 01. Anyways, I sent it to my son because I was like, I wanted him to see, like, people freaked out. All he did was a straight up backflip, just a straight, and they were free. I mean, I remember the first backflip, and but people were losing their mind at this event. Again, I think it was probably X Games, but I mean, the sport's evolved a lot, and we've had conversations over the years of, you being at the, I don't want to say the back end of your career, but you're not in your prime. You're not 19 years old. You're not out chasing the next award. You've kind of been there, done that,
Right.
and had success at it. But for you, I kind of see in between the lines of what you're saying when you talk about arena cross guys or people that are in the stands that go to racing or riding events on two wheels all the time. They are more familiar generally with the freestyle world. So talking about that, does that get in your head much, as far as you're not out doing you're not trying the quad backflip, you're not, I mean, you don't have to, also it's super dangerous. So I guess the question is, does it feel weird or pressure or weight, the fact that you're not the extreme end of what's going on in today's times with freestyle?
If I'm around Travis and those guys that are pushing it, yeah, they're like, they give you a hard time. Come on, old man, get out there. Let's try this.
Yeah.
But outside of that world, I don't really feel any pressure to go and try the newest, gnarliest, latest stuff.
Good.
Like I said, I was very blessed and very fortunate to have accomplished a lot early on in the freestyle world, and now I'm able to kind of kick back a little bit and just you're still doing gnarly stuff. I'm still backflipping and doing a couple, a few upside down tricks, not a lot. Um, so it's not like I'm just chilling riding the bike, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying triple flips and quad flips and stuff like that. So it is a little bit. Every athlete reaches the decline in their career, So I don't even know how to say it, but I'm not at that level, and I know that I'm not at that level. And so, luckily, I've always been a fairly humble guy. That I don't walk into a room and I won medals 20 years ago before y'all were born.
Yeah.
I don't I don't really care. I'm not that guy. So
Yeah.
it's not detrimental to me emotionally that I'm not at the top of the game anymore.
I'm not a freestyle rider, but in my opinion, I think the risk gets greater and greater. I don't know how you could argue that when they are doing quads and they're doing these mega crazy huge super booter jumps. So I feel like the risk factor gets even higher. It's a really risky sport regardless. So I mean, friend to friend, I'm kind of glad you're not trying to be the innovator at 45 years old. You know,
Right.
I look at Travis and what I see from the outside. I don't know him personally. We'll talk about that, but what I feel like I'm seeing is him. I think he's still Travis. He
Right.
does some edgy stuff. But having said that, I also think that he's an innovator. I think he also gets behind and helps push the new generation. You know, I think he like you has been there, done that. I think he still likes to get in there and do it. But what I see is that he's really just supporting the today's generation of freestyle motocross. You know,
Absolutely. That's something Travis has kind of been, not that he's been about that, but he's always been a big supporter of innovating the sport.
mm-hmm.
I want to progress the sport. I want to see how far we can push it. I want to invent new things, but also, like you said, keeping the rider safe.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah, I mean, he's got different ideas of jumps and stuff in his head that are safer than what we were jumping, 20 years ago. And I actually think he had a lot to do with the airbags coming out,
Mm-hmm.
the flat bags, and then eventually into the landing bags and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, they're trying to keep it as safe as possible. Obviously, the guys are jumping bigger and higher and doing more tricks, so
Sure.
it gets gnarlier. But at the same time, the setups are as safe as they can possibly make them.
So I guess with that risk increase, the safety also increases on the other side.
Right. So two things come to mind. I know, like you're saying, you always got to innovate and jump bigger and whatnot. 2006, I had a really bad crash at X Games, and it was the first year they had the 120 ramp, is what they call it. It was at 125 that weekend. I wish it'd been at 120, but it was 125. But I remember, I had never seen this ramp before, and it was out there at the event. You're like, oh my gosh, how do I hit this thing? And that was the first year they had the mega ramp for skateboarding. And so one of the guys from X Games, one of the track builder guys, was like, dude, the skateboards are jumping 75. Like, you got to step it up. As a dirt bike rider, you need to step it up and jump the 120 footer. And that's the one I came up short on. And basically, that was the last contest I ever rode. So,
Wow.
so anyway, yeah, you do always have to innovate yourself and go a little bit bigger and stuff like that. But something that Travis, I don't remember if he wrote this somewhere or if I was just listening to him explain it. Um, Height and distance obviously affect how you land. But if you watch BMX guys and skate guys, when they crash, they just jump off their bike and knee slide down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in the dirt and we're traveling a little faster and stuff. It's a little harder to knee slide, but at the same time, I think that's how he came up with what they call the moon booter ramp. You're going up, but if the landing matches the angle you're coming down at, if you were to bail off of it to a flat landing, yeah, you've dropped 40 feet to nothing.
Okay.
But if you're on a steep enough hill or steep enough landing, you kind of land and just slide down it. Now, again, we're not knee sliding like a BMX guy, but it's actually safer to jump shorter distance really high as long as your landing matches it. So that was something that Travis has always puts a lot of thought into things like that, where
Yeah.
the rest of us just go, oh, okay, whatever. I don't want to crash. That landing's like concrete, But
Yeah.
he actually figures out how to make it safer to where you can do more tricks and have
Yeah.
more head time and
So,
stuff.
so forward thinking, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Let's talk about Travis a little bit. You guys have I don't actually, as many years as you and I've known each other, I don't know the back story of you and Travis. What I do know is that early on, I mean, like late 90s, you guys already were like doing stuff together when X Games was really coming around. I mean, if people go back and Google the two of you, there is a lot of stuff early on. So my point to that, before I ask some questions about you and Travis's relationship, my point is, I guess I should say to the viewers out there that we're talking about like a 15-year-old Travis Pastrana, 17, 18, right? I mean, he was a teenager, correct?
I think he was 11 when I met him. Right.
There you go. Well, let's segue
Yeah.
right into that then. So he's 11 at the time.
So a lot of people and people that don't know, whatever, my uncle is Guy Cooper, past national and world champion for racing. And so I think I was 15 or 16. I just moved up to a 250 pro, racing locally. I wasn't really racing supercrosses or anything yet, but pro rider. And I got out of high school, came out to Guy's house like I did every other day to go ride and practice. And there was a motorhome there, and Travis's mom and dad were there. And Guy's like, "Hey, Travis is already down on the track. Go ride with him." I had no idea who this kid was. Just all right, whatever. Somebody new's right here. So I geared out and rode down to the track. And there's this little stinking kid on an 80 that I was doing everything I could to keep up with him. This was the track, it was Guy's track, but it was where I practiced at. It was basically my home track. I'm now a pro rider, and I'm just barely able to keep up with this kid on an 80. And I'm like, who the heck is this little turd?
Yeah.
But we hit it off good. We were both really into just being athletic and active. After we were done with our motos for the day, we'd go ride BMX bikes. And Guy used to have these little three wheelers called fun cycles, and we'd crash those into each other and skateboard and whatever, just doing something on wheels, being active. It was innocent fun, but we really hit it off good. And so I think Travis was there. It was before either Ponca City or the REM Cup, one of the two. It was a big amateur event, and so Travis would come back for about a week beforehand and get acclimated to the weather. And obviously, it was cool for him to ride at Guy's house and stuff like that. So yeah, we met that way, and then kept in touch over the years. And then actually, so I got an invite to do one of the first ever freestyle contests in Tacoma, Washington. It was a video invite, and it had Clifford Otante and Edgar Torrenteras, Mad Mike, all the old guys doing heel clickers and no footed cans. And I was just like, my God, that stuff's crazy. There's no way I could do that. And I actually turned it down. I told him I wasn't going to come to the event. And luckily, that was about a week or two before Travis showed up for one of the RM Cups. And he taught me how to do a heel clicker and talked me into going to that first event. And he's like, "Come on, Kenny, I know you're going to have fun at it." And so I'm glad he did, because I did. I had a lot of fun. And then, yeah, we just buddied after that.
One of the things that I like about Travis, I don't know him personally. However, I do want to acknowledge one thing, that you have done some great things for my family. But one of them is you calling Braxton last summer and being like, "Hey, let's go film this deal with Travis." And so, obviously, so some people know, some don't. Sometimes I just assume people know. But in 2006, which ironically is the year you just said you got really, really hurt at X Games, which is crazy.
It was that same day.
That's also the year that Travis landed live the double backflip. It just so happens that the day he landed the double backflip was also the day my child was born. That, but some people don't. And so the Braxton's always been a Travis fan, and the fact that he got to just go spend some time kind of off the record time, not in front of cameras, and just being people, that was awesome. What I was going to say is I've not met him, but one of the things that I like about him, even from afar, and it's a reason why you and I've been friends for so long, is because you guys are very humble people. At least what I see. I know that personally about you. I don't know that about him, but what I see is humble. I don't feel like the ego is huge. Now, somebody could argue me like, okay, it's Travis Pastrana's Nitro Circus, but I still, again, even with that, I don't think that's really what it's about for him.
Right.
And I like and I appreciate that. So I say that to set this next area up. I want to talk a little bit more about motocross and then move into some other life stuff. But let's talk about it. You mentioned the first contest for FMX in Tacoma. Where do you go from there with freestyle? Because you've done a lot of different contests, it looks like international and national. Like, can you kind of walk me through how that process really started?
The first year, 1998, there was 3 contests: Tacoma, Lake Havasu, Arizona, and Las Vegas. And it was I think it was a Vans Triple Crown sort of thing, but it was three big contests. And so I got 12th at the first one. I blew my bike up halfway through my run, got 12th place, and I still made more money than I ever had for winning a race. And I was like, heck yeah, this is awesome. Went to the second one in Lake Havasu. I don't remember what happened there. I just ended up like 17th or something. It wasn't anything special. Vegas, the third round, I misshifted. That was my first ride. I switched from Suzuki to a KTM, and it was one of the first days that I'd even ridden the bike. For some dumb reason, I tried to take it to a freestyle show, and hit the big double across the middle in second gear instead of third on a 125. came up short, knocked myself out. It was on some of the older, I think, Big Air Assault video. Um, so it was a rough start for me in the beginning for sure, but it was also kind of gave me some notoriety that, I had this big crash and like people knew of me and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I went back to racing in 99. And then towards the end of 99 in the fall, there was 5 events, one of which being Gravity Games, and they had a doubles contest. And so taking it back to Travis being a really good friend, he invited me to be his partner. And actually, I heard the Gravity Games people said no. They didn't want me. I wasn't in for the singles division, and so they weren't going to have me as his doubles partner. And Travis said, if Kenny's not there, I'm not coming. So I really owe Travis a huge debt of gratitude for that.
Wow.
But then, so I ended up going to Travis's house about 2 or 3 weeks before that, and we worked on some, kind of back in the old days to do like a Superman seat grab and a bar hop and touch feet was huge, So we did a bunch of stuff like that out at his place and kind of worked out a routine. And then we were planning on doing doubles, jump off the bike and jump off the back and do backflips. I suck at backflips, so I landed on my head. He landed right side up. But we still ended up winning a gold medal, and that really catapulted me into people knew who I was. I was now kind of a force to be reckoned with in the freestyle world. So that was 99. And then 2000 was really what I would consider my transition year. I did about half racing and half freestyle. But I guess there was more contests that year. There was probably 10 or 15 contests. And then I got hooked up with a guy, Mark Burnett, that did demos throughout the summer. They were just like at a roundy round track and, dirt track. And so, yeah, just going from show to show to show. Basically, I was a young kid. I wanted to ride my bike anywhere anybody would let me ride. If it paid anything, that was a bonus, but I just wanted to ride my bike and gain more experience. And so I stuck with it.
How many X Games medals do you have?
So I think I have 5 X Games medals and 5 Dew Tours. So I always say I'm a 10-time medalist, but I'm sorry, not Dew Tour, Gravity Games.
Okay. How many of those X Games medals are gold?
2.
Do you remember the trick in 01 that got you the gold?
It was a Shaolin to bar hop, Shaolin, starfish to sterilizer. So you put both feet through the bars, spread your legs out like doing the splits, try to touch your butt on the front fender, and then land sitting on the handlebars.
Oh, wow.
That was the year before the backflip took over everything. So I think that was the last trick that actually won stuff before backflips really took over.
And then after that, if you weren't incorporating backflips, you were not even talked about. Would you agree?
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, unless you were doing some like, do you remember when Chuck Carruthers did I think it was called the Carruther or the
Corolla. Yep.
Corolla. Yeah. You remember that? I remember seeing that live.
Yeah.
I feel like that was, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the backflip had already been happening. I think, does that sound right?
It did. Yep.
And then he did that, and that, like, for a second, you weren't talking about the backflip. You're like, oh my, did that really just happen? That was
right. Exactly. No, that was a huge trick. Like you said, but it was also, I link it in with a backflip style trick. It's one of those big commitment tricks. A lot of the older stuff, your heel clickers and Superman seat grabs and all that, you can work your way up to the trick. There's no like do or die moment where with the backflip, with the Corolla, any of the body varials, any of that stuff, there's a moment where, okay, it's not going right. You either have to commit and go or not, one of the two. Yeah. So even though it wasn't the backflip, I still think it's one of those commitment style tricks.
Sure.
So I will say Ronnie Renner won 2005, I think, Gravity Games best trick with a whip. And he beat Twitch and myself both doing backflips in a best trick. That was the first time that I know of that a backflip had been beaten without doing a backflip. Mm-hmm. And then Thomas Paget, I was doing a lot of exhibitions. I kind of stepped back from the contest world, but I think in like 2012, 2015, Thomas Paget did an entire run at either X Fighters or X Games and won, but didn't do a single flip. But he was doing like bike flips and body varials, and it was huge, gnarly tricks, but I don't think there was one single backflip in it.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost a statement like, yes, you can do this without flipping.
Is there anybody that you ever had beef with? Like, you know, there was the public Travis and Deegan thing for, you know, off and on for years. Just knowing your personality, I feel like the answer is going to be no, but I'm going to ask anyways. Like, was there anybody that you just didn't, that you would even say, like, I mean, was there anything?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I got along with everybody, and even like the militia guys. Like I said, there was the rivalry between Travis and Deegan and whatnot. But any one of the militia guys, pretty much, they were nice one on one. Like I spent the night at Twitch's house a few times, like traveling and stuff. Like so, and Feist is an amazing guy. Gave his life to God. Now he's a minister in Kansas City. So, but back then, if you got any two or three of them together, they were like a bully. You know, they became the militia. Oh, you're the bad guy over there, and they'd give me crap or whatever. But yeah, no, not really. Like
That's cool.
I get along with everybody. And, you know, I've had good rivalries with a lot of the guys like Twitch. Nate Adams was kind of a big rival back in the 2002, 2003 era. But I got along with everybody off the track as well.
What Oklahoma guys were there? There was Clifford, Flying Hawaiian, and you. Or were there other freestyle guys back in your era that were big?
Back in my era, man.
Back in your day.
There was actually a lot of guys that rode freestyle. Jimmy McGuire from Lawton. He actually rode quite a bit of contests, and he never backflipped. And so I think that was kind of the end of his career, really. But he did a lot in the early 2000s. Adam Jones, not Adam, Andy Jones from Lawton. Cody Elkins is from Weatherford originally. I think he lives in Shawnee or Hennessy now. He still rides, actually. Derek Cook. Brian Dowdy used to live in Oklahoma City area. He's in Colorado now. And there was a couple of guys in Lawton that rode, Sean Stillwell, Todd Claiborne, and Earl Kephart. They did a few smaller contests. I don't know if any of them did any of the IFMA stuff, but Slade Waltman rode some freestyle. So yeah, I mean there was quite a few of us that rode back in the early 2000s.
Man, I appreciate talking about that because I mean generally in like real life stuff. Oh, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Well, I was gonna say generally in real life, like when we're around each other, I don't like to pick your brain about old like freestyle stuff, but I do love the sport, and I do think it's important for people to hear from some of the guys that were really the very early stages of a sport that's huge, you know.
So if you enjoy the history of FMX, I don't know if you got a pen or I'll text it to you later, but for people writing this down at home, the book of FMX, the guy's name is Jordi Brew, Breau, I think. He's from Germany, but he's writing a book about the history of FMX. I did an interview with him, probably like a 2 or 3 hour interview while I was driving one day, probably 6 months ago. And he's now updating things on Facebook. So I follow him on there, and it seems like about once or twice a week, he'll be like, hey, such and such videographer sent some stuff over, so-and-so photographer, or, I finally got a hold of this guy and talked to him. And so, man, a lot of guys that I didn't even know were around or had never heard of. He's got photographs and footage and stuff from the late 90s from Austria and Australia and, international stuff that I didn't think anything happened internationally with freestyle until like 2001 to 2003. And apparently there was stuff back in the late 90s that, there was quite a few contests back then internationally. So
yeah,
kind of a cool thing to follow. And I'm excited for the book to come out someday.
You talk about international. I was going to ask you about, so one time I was at your house and you were showing me this, it's actually your office at your Stillwater house. And you're like, you grabbed that X Fighters award. Yeah, it was an X Fighters award.
Yeah, it was
the coolest looking thing ever. What year was that, and where did you win? I know you've told me, I don't remember.
That's all right. Yeah, it was 2003. It was a 2-round series, Barcelona and then Madrid, Spain. And Nate Adams and I went back and forth on that one, but I ended up getting the overall on that one in Madrid. Yeah. And so that award you're talking about, for people that don't know, have never seen it is probably the coolest award that I have. It is a like a wine bottle or glass bottle, but it has a glass blown Red Bull riding a motorcycle inside the bottle. Um, some color to it, but and then it's etched, 2003 X Fighters champion and that on the outside. But also that thing survived being shipped from Madrid, Spain, back to Oklahoma. They sent it in an actual wooden box with like tons of foam around it. Just super, super cool trophy. And so, yeah, it's everything. I got a lot of trophies upstairs that, especially when my kid was younger, I got rowdy upstairs, but that one stays in the office so that it doesn't get broken.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember something about getting it back here, and it was impressive that it got back in one piece. So shifting gears out of the freestyle talk, which by the way, just those of you that are watching, Kenny is still riding. Like he's riding tomorrow and Saturday, and I mentioned that early on when we first started the podcast. But I mean, you're riding. How many weekends do you think you're jumping right now?
Probably pretty close to 30 to 40 weekends a year.
Yeah. So you're spending over half of your weekends in each year still riding. You have the Steel Rodeo Tour, which is yours with your branding, Cowboy Kenny's Steel Rodeo Tour, which can be booked anywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
You've really found a niche in the rodeo world and kind of bringing like a different element. But I mean, that tour can go to any type of event. It could go to a corporate event. It doesn't really matter, but it's a fully self-contained traveling tour, and it's awesome, and you've got really awesome riders that you bring in and ride with you. So guys, just know that, like, even though we're talking about the 2000s and the late 90s and the X Games, this guy's still doing backflips at least 40
Yeah.
weekends a year.
I'm still here, gray hair and all, out here
Yeah,
riding.
right. So let's talk about the film industry. When did you get the idea to start doing film stuff? And take us from there, and then let's kind of go like through maybe a little bit about what you've done.
So 2003, I actually got invited to do Fantastic Four, the original one with Chris Evans and those guys. But there was a scene where they went to a freestyle show. It was supposedly an X Games. They actually shot it in Vancouver, Canada. Believe it or not, they rented the BC place in Vancouver and brought in like 5,000 extras and built a freestyle course there, all for that like 30-second scene. It was insane the budget they spent on that to do that one little scene. I'm like, can you guys buy some stock footage from X Games and just use that? But I got to go, and I actually got to rehearse the stunt that the Human Torch jumps off the bike and he like does a backflip and flames off. I got to do the rehearsal for that, and it was so much fun. I had a blast doing it. It was very. I got to be on a bike and I got to use my skill set on a dirt bike, but in a completely different world that was new to me. And so I actually really wanted to get into doing stunts back then, but I very much had blinders on for contests at the time. I was riding 5 6 days a week, and like everything revolved around going to the next contest. And the stunt world is very much a networking, who you're hanging out with. Like you got to stay top of mind for people in the stunt world. And so I never got anything else. I take that back. I did do a ultimate fighting movie called No Rules, and then I got to double the girl on Supercross that did the backflip. That was actually me with a wig on, but
Okay.
so that was kind of cool. So I got to do a couple of things back then, and then just lost focus in it. I didn't ever get any traction. Then fast forward, I think 2013, 2014. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. I mean, I still love riding, but I realize I can't ride forever, and so I talked to Regis. Andy Harrington used to write a column for Racer X, was a supercross racer in the late 90s. He was always just ahead of me in the staging area, so I remember him well from that. But he also was a head judge for X Games and stuff, and so I talked to him quite a bit about the stunt world, and he's like, "Man, New Orleans is the place to be. If you want to do it, you just got to uproot the family and move down here." And so, going, all right, let's do it. We're going all in. And so we did. I moved the family down to New Orleans and was knocking on doors pretty much ever since. But the first year was really slow. I think I lived there an entire year, worked 2 days in the
Wow.
summer. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Luckily I still had freestyle and I'm still riding and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I didn't lose income or anything, but at the same time, like, wow, we moved all the way down here and I'm not getting anything. Um, And then it's just slowly came around. I've had a couple of big moments where like, oh, okay, now I'm in the world and I'm going to take off in the stunt business. And then you'll have like 6 months or a year of not nothing, but almost nothing. You're like, what the heck? And then it picks up again. So it's a very up and down emotional roller coaster of an industry.
You moved to New Orleans, and some people may wonder why New Orleans, just because touch on that a little bit about why, why Louisiana.
So the big production companies are chasing tax credits, basically. They're a, I don't know, $100 billion company or whatever. And so when a different state will incorporate a tax incentive, and I don't know exactly how all the tax incentives work, but say you're putting together a $10 million budget and it's a 30% tax break. You don't just get 3 million off of your taxes that you would owe. They actually pay you $3 million. They did some stuff like front end tax versus back end tax. And for a while, New Orleans was doing front end tax. So if I came in and said, hey, I'm going to put on a $100 million movie and just say it was 30%, the government would pay me $30 million before I ever even came to New Orleans to shoot. Well, there's your startup cost to produce a film.
Yep.
And then you get your sponsors and say, hey, we're already 20 million into this, and I need more investors and stuff. So that was why a lot of film industry moved to New Orleans for a while. It's been up and down, depending on who's in office at the time. Even at the state level, not even national, but at the state level, and I get it. People outside of the New Orleans proper and Baton Rouge, Shreveport and all the surrounding counties are like, why are we subsidizing these billionaires to come to our state? We don't see anything from it. New Orleans itself likes it because it does bring in outside industry, and we moved there. I'm sure there's thousands of people that have moved to New Orleans just for the film industry. So it does have an economic bonus to it for that area, but the rest of the state doesn't see it. So it's a constant up and down of like raising the tax incentive, lowering it, raising it, lowering it.
I know you won't list off everything you've been in. You're just not that guy. So instead, I'll just ask you about a few things. Tell me 3 different, very notable projects that you've done as far as movies, like with A-lister guys and gals that you've done over the years. Just list 3 of them.
I'll give you a couple more than that, but
give me 10.
I think I have about 70 credits, but honestly, I don't even remember all of them. I'm at that point where every now and then I'll watch a film and be like, oh yeah, I was in this one. I forgot about that one. Huh. But Jack Reacher 2, I had a little spot in that one. Logan, the Wolverine movie. Jumanji with The Rock, the first one with all the dirt bikes in it, was one of those guys. I just got to double Jason Statham on Expendables 4. It was 2 years ago, but it just came out in October. And then Killers of the Flower Moon that just came out as well. We filmed that one 2 years ago, and I think it just came out in October as well.
I remember you having a conversation with Braxton about working with Dwayne Johnson, and you witnessed something. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it was for you. I think it was with your family that you had a cool experience with The Rock. So tell me about your experiences with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and what they've been like.
There was two real experiences that opened my eyes to how humble the guy is, and just an amazing celebrity. I got to work it was in Hawaii filming Jumanji. So for 6 weeks, I got to be in Hawaii, which that was cool in and of itself.
Sure.
But at one point, I got to fly my family over, and Brooks and Kimberly got on set for a little bit, just one day. I don't remember how. This was 2016, so Brooks was probably 9 or something like that. And he wanted to meet The Rock. That was his biggest thing. And so got him on set. We're just kind of standing off to the side. We're not getting in the way of anything. And in between takes, Dwayne actually came over and just walked up and goes, "Hey, who's this big guy?" And gave him knuckles, and I introduced, this is my son, and they talked for a little bit, probably 30 seconds or a minute, and then, all right, well, I got to go film the next scene, and he turned around and walked back. But there's 100 people on the crew. For him to see a kid that wasn't there all the time and be like, "Hey, who is this?" and walk over and introduce himself, I thought that was super, super cool. And then we're filming mostly night scenes, and so you're out there till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was a closed set, so no public was allowed in. So every day when you'd leave the gate, there was it got bigger as the time went on, but there was like 5 people out there the first day and then 10 the next day. And by the end, there's probably 30 or 40 people lined up at the gate trying to wave at the rock.
Mm.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, these are some crazy dedicated fans out there, like trying to get a picture or something with him. And there was this one lady, she was there 3 or 4 nights in a row, and she had a sign, all this vet wants is a gym session with The Rock. She was an Army veteran, and she wanted to go to the gym and like, I don't know, work out with The Rock. And so he was out there signing autographs. And then when he got to that lady, he got down on the ground and did a push-up contest with her. I think he did like 4 or 5 and was like, well, that's all I got in me today, you know. But still, for a guy of his caliber to stop and sign autographs for the fans at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning was pretty amazing. And I'm sure that comes from the wrestling world. You know, obviously the fans are huge in that world, but it's cool to see that, you know, he hasn't lost touch with that. Another cool guy, Hugh Jackman, buys little scratch off tickets for the entire crew every Friday. The little $2 things, you know, I guess, I don't know what he spent, $100 or whatever, get 50 of them and pass them out. And on Logan, one of the girls won like 10 grand from one of the scratch off that he gave her. So that was kind of cool.
What has there been like an experience in film in anything? Because I mean, you've done country music videos to movies, to lots of, you know, TV, Tulsa King, a lot of things. Is there just been one like cool standout experience just for you personally? Like maybe doesn't matter who it was with, but is there just in your length of being in front of the camera, has there just been an experience that was maybe like an aha moment or like a major gratitude moment or just something that's just always sticks with you?
Man, I got a lot of cool experiences. There's nothing that really like this was the one thing that stands out. As I do things like this with a podcast, and it brings up memories and stuff. Like, I had forgotten about the Hugh Jackman thing, you know, handing out scratch offs and little things like that I'm reminded of all the time. But there's hundreds of them. There's a lot of really cool people in the celebrity world. You know, we see the A-listers, you know, flipping off the paparazzi and like running from them and stuff like that. And I don't know how much of that is scripted or not. I don't know. But when they're on set, 99% of them are really nice people that are easy to work with. And, you know, they're just super down to earth on the acting side as well as even the music side. I got to meet Luke Bryan and the Florida Georgia Line guys, Chris Cagle, Bucky Covington. I'm actually really good friends with Craig Morgan. Craig's an amazing individual, just super down to earth, rides dirt bikes. Bucky Covington and his twin brother Rocky both ride dirt bikes as well. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, they're just normal people, and I don't know. I'm very fortunate that because of my background, they treat me like another normal person, and you get to know them. You know, I've got to ride on the bus with Chris Cagle and with Craig Morgan to actually Bucky as well to different events, like go from one concert to the next, just riding on the bunk in the bus. Like, wow, this is cool. Like, I feel like a rock star, even though I'm definitely not.
We'll have a conversation about Craig Morgan sometime. I don't know him, but I think that is one stand-up dude, and I think he is all those guys that you mentioned. I love Chris Cagle, all those guys. But man, Craig Morgan, man, that's what, you know, there's some people in this world that you're just like, man, that's a good human. He just seems like a good human.
Down to earth, as salt of the earth as it gets.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, man, I could talk to you forever about all these things. Let's end on this.
All right.
Every time I talk about Supercross with you, you say, man, I just don't stay up to date with it enough. Are you staying up with it at all this season? We're 5 weeks in. 6 weeks in.
I think I watched the first 2 rounds.
All right. What do you think about Jet Lawrence being 20 years old, going 24 races in a row? And he's 20 years old. Like, do you think that's crazy? Do you think he's the next, he's trying to claim the next McGrath? 72 wins. You think he can do it?
I don't know. I hate to see anybody be cocky like that and claim something that's that huge. But at the same time, yeah, I think he's got the talent. And, you know, if a guy at 30 years old comes in and wins his first, even if he won 10 in a row, like, I'm going after McGrath. Well, dude, you're 30 already. You know, it's going to take you 6 more years of winning 10 or 7 years to be anywhere close to that. But at 20 years old, yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of time left to do it. So, and obviously he's got huge talent, you know, my hat's off to him for that. I've never met Jet, so I don't know how he is personally. And he doesn't really come off as cocky in his interviews. I mean, I don't think, I mean, he knows he's very confident, and he knows he's got the confidence. He knows he's got the skill, but I don't really feel like he's super cocky. But to claim I'm going after McGrath's thing this early on is pretty, I don't know, whatever. Good luck to him, I guess.
That caused a lot of controversy, but I'm not bringing this up to get controversial. I just love to talk motocross. I will say, like, love him or hate him, he's shown up and he's showed out. He's shown what he can do. It's not like he won 2 races last year and is like, I'm the next McGrath. I mean, for those people that don't know what a big deal that is, McGrath exceeds everybody. I mean, the closest I think is 52 or 53 wins now with Eli Tomac, who will not catch McGrath, and they're just, the math won't math for that. So could it be done like you just said by Jet? Yes. One thing, I think he's amazing. I think he's great. Like, I'm not a hardcore Jet fan, but I'll give credit where credit's due, no matter what. I think he might be slightly misunderstood by his barrier of a different country. Now, I'm not giving him an excuse, but some of the things he says, like, media will just rail him for things, and some things sound to us like telling Ken Roxon, like, oh, I did this one for your baby, like this one's for your kid. Like, some of those things I think sound really like bad, but I don't know that his intentions are that way. Again, and I don't know him, so I don't know. But the more I watch and hear, like, he'll talk kind of when he's being interviewed, he'll be kind of on the fly with an answer, and I'm like, I'm not sure that maybe his mouth just doesn't talk a little bit faster than his brain, and maybe a slight culture difference, So I don't know, but I do think he's super talented and he's great. I want to see everybody win. I love Ryan Dungey, but there was a point in Ryan Dungey's career where I was like, I've seen him every race. He gets the whole shot and he wins it. Gets the whole shot and he wins. And at some point that got almost boring. I don't want to see that with Jet, and I'm not this year because he's not winning everything, which I think is great. I think it's great for the industry. I think it's great for the very stacked field. Again, I know you're not staying up with it, but there's names that you've known for years: Anderson, Barsha, Tomac, Roxon, Christian Craig. Those guys are all still like top 10 guys, and a lot of them are over 30. It
is kind of cool that I feel like the whole sport has gone to an older genre. Like, I don't know if guys are staying in the lights class a little bit longer before they move to 450 or what it is, but I do feel like a lot, in the late 90s, early 2000s, if you were 26 to 28, you were at the end of your career. And now guys are riding into their 30s, 32, 34,
As far as like the top 10, like, there's a dude, I cannot think of his name, you might know it. He's racing the 250 class. I think he's doing it for fun, but he's 40 or 41 years old. Billy. Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess he was a rock star back in the day, and he's just doing it because he loves it. And I love that. That's just a cool story.
That's what it should be about. I mean, I realize there's guys out there trying to win their championship and make their mark in the sport and make a living and all this. But at the same time, we're all out here because we love to ride dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And if you're still good enough to make the top 20, get out there and get after it, buddy.
What do you have going on? I know you're jumping this weekend at a monster truck deal. What do you have, like, what's on the horizon for as you come, kind of out of winter into the spring? What's on your books?
Just more monster truck shows. I'm going Pikeville. I got next weekend off, and then Rosemont, Illinois, and Little Rock, Arkansas are monster jams. A weekend off, and then Enid, Oklahoma. It's kind of tentative right now, but I'm actually not even sure what that event is. But I might be jumping in Enid, Oklahoma, March 24th, I think, and Jacksonville, Florida, for another monster jam. So yeah, I'm just kind of back and forth. Just doing freestyle. For some reason, the stunt world is like dead right now. There are a few things filming, but even talking to other stunt guys are like, I don't know why it's not coming back. Last year we had the big strike. There was Actors Guild, Directors Guild, and Writers Guild. All three went on strike at some point in the year. And so we officially ended the strike in December, and everybody kept talking, oh, as soon as the strike ends, man, it's going to be, you're going to be on set every day, filming something somewhere every day. Now the strike's over, and we're like, all right, somebody call me, luckily I still have the freestyle thing and Steel Rodeo Tour to fall back on. And so hopefully stunts will pick up this summer and see where life takes me.
Well, as always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate just the human that you are. It's I don't take lightly good people, in my life. And really, I surround myself around good people, but there are people that are just solid. And I appreciate you being one of those people. So where can people find you that maybe don't have you on like socials and et cetera, et cetera? Kind of, can you just tell us as we wrap up, where can people find you and stay up to date with what you're doing?
So Instagram and Facebook are the two that I kind of update semi often. I'm horrible about it, but Cowboy Kenny 690 is both social media for Instagram and Facebook.
Cool.
And then, like I said, I'm really bad about posting where I'm going or whatever. But a lot of fans will send us videos or something, you know, where they take a video from the stands, and a lot of times I'll be able to repost those, which doesn't help people find me where I'm at. It's like, well, this is where you were last week. Oh, you were in my town. I didn't know about it.
I think we should work together and get you up to date on those things. I'll help you out.
There you go. I just had to send an audition tape for something, and I had to send it through WeTransfer. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I never used it.
I'm really proud of myself. I sent 2 videos. I filmed a video and sent it all by myself.
Shoot, before long, you'll be sending emails.
Right?
That's awesome, man. Well, again, I appreciate it, Kenny, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. It's funny you mentioned Enid at the end of March, and immediately in my head's like, where am I going to be in March? I think that weekend I'm actually out of town, but it is so crazy. If we were to look back through 3 or 4 years of text messages, every time that you're within like 3 or 4 hours of home, I swear I'm somewhere else. So one of these days we'll get to catch up at a show. So
Right, exactly.
cool. All right, man. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much, buddy.
All right, you too. Take care.